So chess is a game that is really old. 6th century old, actually. So today, let's take a look at a game that takes chess and shakes it up a little bit. So let's have a look at King's Ransom Deluxe. So in King's Ransom Deluxe, you don't actually use pieces, you're going to be using decks of cards, which is the first way it shuffles the game up. So let me show you what is in one of these decks of cards, and we'll set up the game and I'll show you how it's played. So let me show you the blue deck here. So first card you're going to have is, well, your king. You know, you got to have your king because that's how you win and lose the game. So if your king is captured, you lose the game. Simple enough. Now, in the basic deck, you also get a prince, which is, this is the only unique card that you're going to have in the basic game, but you do have this prince, which moves just like a king, but if you capture it, there's no penalty or no gain. Next up is you have your queen. Of course, queens move like any other queen in any other chess game, where they will go in any amount of spaces in any direction, just like that. But what you need in this game is you actually have 2 queens. Next up, your rook, which all the cards here move as they classically do, but you actually have 4 rooks in the game, as opposed to your normal 2. Next up, your bishop, but instead of 2, you're going to have 4. Then you have your knights, but of course, again, you have 4. And then finally, you have your pawns, which, as in regular chess, when you move your pawn for the first time, you can actually move it twice. But with this, when you reveal the card, is when you get that second movement. And you have your 8 pawns, as you typically do in a classic game of chess. So let me set up the game and I'll show you how the game is played. So the very first thing you do is you pull your king out of your deck and you're going to place it right in the middle of the play area. If you do accidentally shuffle the king into your deck, it's pretty easy because he is double-sided. So you just take your king and you place him right here in the middle of your play area. You also do get one of these handy little cheat sheets that will tell you how the game is played and the turn order, and some reminders about how each piece moves and the movement rules that are on each card. Then you're going to give your deck a shuffle, which I already did. And if you look at the back of the instruction booklet, they have a guide as to how to set up the game and the play area that you're going to be using. So, you're going to take the first 4 cards off of your deck, and you're going to place them around your king, and then 2 in front of your king, like so. And then your opponent is going to do the same thing. And just to show you, I have them set up, but unfortunately I can't fit it all onto my camera, so I'm just going to show you this in pan as we need to. Then, each player is going to draw a hand of 3 cards from their deck. So 1, 2, and 3. So just you see, I drew a knight, a rook, and a pawn. Then, you gotta know what you have out on your side, so in secret you're going to peek at what all of your cards are. So here I have a rook right there. I have a pawn right in front of my king. To his left I have another rook, and to his right I have another pawn. And my opponent will do the same, so that way we know what each of us have on our side. So, the first thing you will do is you're going to reveal a face-down card. So you choose any face-down card that you have on your side of the board, and you're going to reveal it. So let's go ahead, I'm going to reveal this rook right up here. Then you move. You can move any face-up piece. It doesn't have to be the one you just revealed, so I could move my king if I wanted to. But you know, I am going to use my rook, and I'm going to capture this face-down card here. So let's zoom in here. So let's see what we have captured here. So my rook is taking over this space. You flip it over, and ooh, I have captured his queen. Capturing his queen is pretty cool. So then I'm going to take that and I'm going to put it into my opponent's discard pile because you're not going to keep the pieces. The next thing you would do is announce check if you have your opponent in check. Of course, I do not right now because his king is still safely tucked behind a couple cards here. My rook can't get to him. Then what you're going to do is you're going to play one of your cards from your hand. You're going to play it face down. And it can only be played onto your side of the play area, which again is right here, showing you all the places that your cards can be. So it's divided right in half. So, seeing what I have here, I know I have pawns, I have plenty of rooks out, but I have a knight here that can do some fancy moving here. So let's see, I'm going to place my knight, and I'm going to place my knight right here face down. So next you look at your hand, and you're going to play a card, and you're going to play it face down. Well, I know I have plenty of rooks out, I have plenty of pawns out, but I don't have any of these knights out. So I do have a knight here, so I'm going to go ahead and place him, and I'm going to place him right here, and hopefully be able to capture this piece that's right up here with that knight, or I can capture it with my rook, and if he tries to capture it, general strategy there. Then the next thing you do is you're going to draw a card. So I drew another pawn. How exciting! So play will continue until somebody captures their opponent's king, or you go to a stalemate, which that's never any fun. But whoever captures the opponent's king is declared the winner. Now this is just the basic game. There are some slightly different cards that you can augment your deck with if you wanted to do a little bit of deck building before you actually play the game. So let me show you what those cards are. Of course, I already showed you the rooks that are already in the game, but you can replace those rooks with something like a ballista, which gives you a slightly different ability. As you can see, it is immobile. This ballista does not move. So when you reveal it, you discard one of your opponent's pieces except for the king. There's 2 or 3 spaces away, directly in front of this piece. Then you discard it. So it's a ka-chunk, and then it is gone. And then there are several of those. Then there's also a tower, which when you have your tower out, your tower moves just like the regular rook piece does. But the owning player may look at their opponent's hand. So with the tower, you kind of get some insight about what's coming out next. And then there's 4 copies of that. Next up, different versions of the queen. So we have a handmaiden, which she does move slightly differently. She can move up and down, left and right, as many spaces, but diagonally, she can only move 1 space. So the owning player may trade a card from their hand with a card from their discard pile. So at the handmaiden, you can start pulling cards from the discard pile. And there are a couple copies of those. We have a lady in waiting that, again, moves a little bit differently. For knights, we have a squire, which does move, of course, differently than the regular knights. We have lancers that move only on the diagonal 1 space. These replace the prince cards. So we have a princess, we have a duke, and then to replace the bishops, we have the revered bishop. And then we have some cardinals, which have a slightly different ability and they move a little bit differently. So that's just the basics of the game, so that way you get the overall feel of how the game works. So you can play with the basic cards, or you can throw in those augmented ones to give you a little bit different feel, and you can deck build against each other and try to figure out a good strategy and, have just different cards in your deck. So that just make it pretty cool. There's also a 4-player variant, which the game comes with 2 other basic decks, and you're only going to use the basic cards. You can't use any of the premium cards, if you want to call them that. And then you're going to play a 4-player version of that. So it does have that in it. But let's get over to the ratings for this game. First up is gameplay. Well, if you know how to play chess, this game should be pretty easy to learn. So if you know the basics, you're going to get into it really easily. If you don't know the basics, pretty much the instructions are right on the card teaching you how to move each one of those pieces. And playing in that thin play area does limit what you can do, so you have less options. So it might be a little bit easier to play than regular chess. This is also a great way to teach somebody the basics of chess. You could even actually lay this out as a full chess board and just teach somebody chess with these cards. But that's not the game, so we're not going to talk about that, even though I just did. But just for gameplay, if you know chess, it's pretty simple. Not many rules augmenting it. So, for gameplay, I'm going to give this a B+. Next up are components. Oh, components. Well, the game is published by Victory Point Games, and it comes in this classic slide sleeve thing with their classic red box that they do use. This is my first experience with the Victory Point game, and, well, I'm not that impressed. I did some research to find out if this is generally what their quality is, and it seems to be pretty consistent with what I received here. One thing that really disappointed me was the card quality, and the printing on the cards, actually. So if you look here, you can see that some of the cards are offset with their printing. So not a huge deal, but if you play this game enough and you have those players that can see those little minor details and know, oh, that card shifted up, so I know that one is one of the queen cards, and that card is perfectly centered, so I think that might be one of the pawns. That could really affect gameplay if you have somebody that will meta the game like that. Also, the cards aren't the greatest of quality. It's just really thick cardstock, which I feel like I could probably print on my own printer at home and maybe even get better results than what I have printed here. So for components, I'm going to give a D-. Next up is replay. Well, for this game, replay is pretty high, especially with the different decks that you can make, because every deck can be different. You and your opponent's deck can be completely different, so it is a good variety of play, especially if you are going to be doing that deck building aspect of the game, so that you can have something a little bit different every time you play. So for replay, I'm going to give that a B-. So we throw those into the conversion and mush them all together, and overall, King's Ransom Deluxe gets a B-. So not too bad. Components did bring it down a little bit, but a B- is still pretty good for my rating system. So definitely, if you're interested in this, please go to Victory Point Games website. You can buy it from there. You might be able to buy it from other outlets. Your friendly local game store might even be able to get this in if they don't. Look for it if you're looking for a game of chess turned on its side. And as always, do not forget to share, like, subscribe, and support Cloak and Meeple. Thanks. And as always, thanks for watching, and now here comes the garbage truck.